Hello there, YouTubers. Trying to get something out to you guys, and this is a question that gets asked to me, asked of me, or something like that. I can't talk. I'm frozen. Anyhow, is how much horsepower do I need to run a sawmill? And that's what I'm going to try to answer, but there is no answer. And it's, you know, the bottom line answer, which I should give at the end of the thing, is as much as you can afford. You know, if you can, I started out with a little 2-cylinder engine driving the sawmill in the back with a 52-inch blade, and I could get through wood. So you can saw with lesser amount of horsepower, but it's just not as comfortable, or not as easy, or not as, I don't know. You can get through it. Okay, so take all this stuff with a grain of salt, or a grain of mud, or ice, or snow, or a grain of leaves, whatever you want to use for your grain. But basically, I wrote some notes down so I wouldn't forget too much, and then I'll come in and show you some of the pages. But of course, I probably don't do too good at that. I'm so goofed up, it don't matter really what I do. Basically, what I like to think of, except for I got all my notes. Here comes another jet. How'd they know? Okay, what it depends on. There's a lot of things that it depends on. It's no one answer. I've told a lot of people it's like a tree. You go up and then you find this way and this way, and then you go up and it branches off. You got this way and this way, and then branches off. You got this way and way. The maximum teeth that you're going to use, first of all, the more teeth you got, the more horsepower it takes. Okay, that's the bottom line. The maximum teeth that you're ever going to run on a sawmill is less than 25%. I think that blade's in the picture right now. I have to keep coming over. Yeah, it's kind of in the picture. I'll move this over a little bit this way. So the way I kind of tell you, okay, you're at the bottom of your cut here, which is above your collar. So if you count up your teeth, you're only going to be using 25% of them. The rest of the teeth are just flying wild. So this is the rule of thumb that I like to tell people. I hope that this is in there. I'll come in and get a picture of it later. For one tooth, you want 5 horsepower. For 2 teeth, double the 5 to 10. For 3 teeth, double it again. For 4 teeth, double it again. So now you're up to 6 teeth, you're up to 100. Oh, there goes my notes. It's windy now. Bad enough I don't remember, but then now you're up in the 160 to, over 200 range. And I think that's what you really want in this range. Those up there probably pull harder than these down here because they got a longer stroke. In other words, they're through the wood more. There's a lot of calculations here that I'm never even going to be able to figure. But I would say to be comfortable, this will get you in a comfortable range. But you want over probably 150, 200, over 100. The mill in the back is a 473. I think it's rated at 105 horsepower, and that's probably a 2400 RPM rating. So I'm probably only pushing 75 horsepower back there. This is a 671. It's rated at 238. That's what I'm running here. That's what Mark is running up on his mill. And you're probably not running at 2400 RPM. I'm kicking this one here, I think somewhere around 18. I don't know. So it's lesser horsepower, but you want 100, 150, the more horsepower, because they give you a feed rate. So it also depends on how fast you feed, how sharp your blades are. I mean, there's like a branch, there's a million limbs going off on it. So that's kind of what I tell people, But most of the time you want to saw for the majority of your wood. Okay, this has got, as my magic number in the back, 23 inches. So I can cut a 23.5 inch log here. Okay, but that's not the rule of thumb for me here. You're going to get into it. So you can knock a few of those top teeth off. So if you're only running, most of the time, like this one here, 7 or 8 teeth, a couple hundred horsepower would be plenty. So that's kind of how I figure it a little bit. Now what one gentleman just told me about was a skip tooth thing, where he took every other tooth out, so he had less teeth, so he needed less power. The reason you need the power when you get into a log, these blades are curved, and you got to get them up to RPM so they stand up straight. Okay, until they get the RPM, they're just a little curved over. It's something you could probably never see, but it's there. So you got to get it up. It's basically, if you have a skill saw and you're going through a piece of board, you can't cut circles. Well, that blade, if it's not straight, it won't go through. And what happens is you'll get to the back half of that blade that's not straight, it's curved, and it'll hit the rim and it'll heat up, and then you got all sorts of problems. So that's one thing. This will be down later. It also depends on the kind of wood you're sawing. Okay, if you're sawing a nice, easy sawing wood like pine saw is pretty good, you can probably go with lesser horsepower. If you're sawing maybe some of the hickories or some of the harder woods, or there's just different woods that are just hard to saw. Even in some of the soft woods, they're hard to saw. Or you can take like a white pine, okay, that I've been sawing a lot of in the back, and you get into a great big knot, and it could be like cutting steel. But then it goes back to, okay, this one. How sharp are your teeth? Okay, if you have teeth that are, say, fairly not sharp, I don't know how to tell you how you want them cat claw sharp. Because it's going to take you, think about it, the surface area on that 1/4 inch wide tooth, let's say 1/4 inch, okay, if the pounds per square inch pushing down on that tooth, if it's, say, half dull or whatever you want to say, it's going to take twice as much power to saw through a log. Just flat out. That's just the way it is. And you'll feel it when you're pulling the saw. Then let's see, depends on the kind of wood, okay, and the size of the knots that are in the wood. I did good on that one. Okay. Now, another thing that a lot of people are talking about is the RPMs. I think, rule of thumb, everybody says, hey, yeah, I need 500 RPM, I need 500 RPM, I need 500 RPM. Well, that's what you're saying. I have no idea what I'm running here. I want whatever the saw's happy with, and it was a used saw, so I don't know what it was hammered to. So I'll bring up the RPM, bring up the arm until it stands there perfectly straight, and that's where I want it. The 500 RPM in my mind comes from the old farmer tractor PTOs. Most of the time turning 500 RPM, and a lot of them would just back their tractor into the shaft, and that's what ran it. They'd stick, and so that's probably why that started being the rule of thumb. But what you really want is the feet per minute, or inches per minute, or feet per minute on this. You want the rim speed, okay? And you got to get that rim speed up, because you just don't have it with those smaller saws, especially if you're running a small saw like a 36 to 48 is relatively small. Well, 48's getting about average, okay? But think about it. You start changing the tip speeds, and I'm going to show you some of the, in that book that I got, some of that stuff. And it also depends on your feed rate. So if you need more horsepower, if you're taking a bigger bite, okay, you're going to need a more horsepower. But there's a I don't know how to, a happy medium in the feed rate. Okay, I'll get into that in a minute. If I better say it now or I'll forget. But these aren't necessarily in order. These have a gullet here. You got to figure when you're into a deep cut, which is like the whole thing, that gullet fills up with sawdust. If that's more full of sawdust than it can handle, it's going to start going out and acting like a brake on going through the log. If you're handling too slow, it makes flour. And we call it, oh, you're sawing flour today, because you're feeding so slow, it's making real fine dust, almost like a band mill dust. And then it'll go around these edges here, and you'll see a lot of blades. A lot of times will have a wore out spot here where the sawdust, because these guides or tensioners or inserts, they got all different names depending on where you're coming from. But the light little bit of sawdust, the flour, goes around them and cuts a groove in those blades. So if you got to find your happy feed rate per log, a bigger log, different, it's not just, yeah, I need a 100 horsepower motor and I'm going to feed at this rate and all this kind of stuff. There's too many variables in there. Okay, the more teeth, okay, the more teeth you need if you got a bigger blade, or the more teeth you probably have if you have a bigger blade. You got a bigger blade, I don't know, it keeps going on. Let's see, I think I covered them. The width of the saw tooth, or the kerf, okay, these are tapered, the teeth are tapered, and as you start sharpening them, you're getting less and less and less cut, okay? But then even like on a chainsaw, if you're sitting there and that chain is not in the track of your saw guide, that blade can be wobbling around, and your kerf could be wider than the chain, which is causing you more horsepower, or eating up more horsepower. So if you have a blade here that's maybe not tight in the front guide and it's wobbling and doing all sorts of stuff, it could be causing you a horsepower loss. So, you know, if your blade wobbles too much, and they wobble, not if they're great, but how much horsepower to run a sawmill? That was my #1 card, first one. Anyhow, you know, at the RPMs that you want. That's what that is. Okay, I think I said that you want to hold the RPM so the blade stands up, so that's what this one is. Now I'll come over and bring the thing over here on the different things I got. Maximum teeth less than 25%, we told you that. Okay, so when you're figuring your teeth, skip tooth, okay, that just makes less teeth that are biting, so that might give you, if you don't have quite enough horsepower. A gentleman just told me about that. I never heard it on a circular sawmill. I heard it on a skip tooth on a chainsaw chain, but it makes perfectly good sense, and there's nothing wrong with it, I guess, if it works. Okay, knots are harder to come by. Sharp teeth are important. Skip tooth chain, we've got, oh man, the wind's getting me. Oh Lordy, we're never going to see all mine. That was a good note that I just lost that I hadn't gone over. I can't win here, guys. Friends. Let's see, RPM. All right, size of the blade, the more teeth, the more horsepower, the width. All right, I'm gonna bring you over and show you this book over here. There's one book that you got to get. I don't have it. I couldn't find it, by Casey Kramer. Okay, and that's a good book. If you're just getting into sawmills, you get that book. And I'm gonna bring you over here and give you this other book. I'm gonna bring this over here because this is just a lot more sturdy than I am, and maybe you could browse through it a little bit. Sound effects, man. Where do you get sound effects anyplace else? Now we'll zoom in a little bit. We'll take that out of there. This is telling you your tip speeds. This is a good book. I guess I should start off by that. These you can get on eBay for less than 20 bucks. I really recommend this book. It's a great book. A good reference thing. It's got a lot of information in there. And this is over here talking about, you know, your gullets filling up and the different style of teeth. They all have different size gullets depending on what style blade you had, whether it's an F pattern or B pattern or 2.5 pattern or 3 pattern or, you know, old Diston blade or something like that. They all got different size gullets in here. And this tells a lot of information about your tip speed, your RPM, your size of your blade, and all that kind of stuff. I'll put it here so you can kind of, I hope that maybe you can stop your camera and read it if you don't have this book, and that's something, that's the tip RPMs and tip speeds and stuff like that. This is kind of on gullets and stuff like that. But this book has just got an enormous amount of information. Here's some other information to just kind of let you see what kind of information this has. It's just an excellent source of information. Here's some more stuff here. So that kind of, I hope it focuses in enough so you can get it. And then this is just something that I got. I kind of collect what they call paper, I guess. I got a lot of brochures and paper, and this is a Cat Power Guide for Sawmill. Cat Power Guide for Sawmills, and it explains how much power you want, I guess. And here's how to figure it real quick. Yeah, right. I can't figure it, and they might be figuring it a little bit different, which I was looking at it. I'll let you guys kind of go through it and do your own calculations, because you're not going to find this one, I don't think, anywhere. This is a real old, I'll see if I can find out what the date on it is. That's just, they're advertising different cat motors for the sawmills. But I think here when they're talking the number of teeth, okay, I think they're talking the whole way around, where I'm just talking 25% of your teeth. That's how much you're going to use. Here's like I said, I don't think that you're going to find this brochure, handout, or, you know, it's just something I happened to come across on eBay and said, oh man, I got to get that. That's kind of interesting. Band mills is kind of a different story. I don't know. I'm not too much in band mills, but if you start thinking about it, that's a different horsepowers and weights. That's really not too concerning. But there you go. There's a good old sawmill on the front of it. Nice piece. I just bought another one. It should be in the mailbox up there, but I'll run this one again in case it didn't come out too good. Maybe it'll come out better the second time. And you might be able to figure the horsepower that you want to use to run your sawmill, but I'd say over 100. You know, you can run it with a tractor and you can run it with less. It's just going to be frustrating. And if you think about it, okay, I'll close this up. I did lose the one paper down there that I really wanted to go over with you guys. If you think about it, a little band mill, okay, some of those little band mills got, you know, 10, 12, 15 horsepower. And I think Nathan's down there. He might have 50 horsepower on that. And think of how many teeth he's got going through that saw at what RPM. And he's not cutting anywhere near the kerf that these do. But he's still got maybe 50 horsepower of stuff on there. There's that. I'd recommend that if you're looking into playing with sawmills. That's a good book. And like I said, Casey Kramer. That's another one. And if I'd had the book, I'd have brought it down. I'm not sure that's how he spells his name. But he's got a lot of real interesting YouTubes on aligning circle mills, and man, he's pretty advanced. So, you know, it might be a good thing for you to look at. But that's kind of a wrap-a-dap. That's still working on this old mill. And another question that's been asked quite often, or I'm trying to get this thing through here, and you can't quite get it through. It's where the boys are. There they are. They haven't gone anywhere. They haven't moved. They're frozen. It's cold out here. It's about 30. I think it's about 34 degrees out here right now. So they've just been sitting here frozen, loafing, doing nothing. So keep an eye on those guys. They might be up to something before too long. You just never know with those guys. But whatever it is, it ain't gonna be fast. You know that. The only thing fast, well, I don't know. Mark saws wood pretty fast, and there's not too many people faster than Eddie getting the wood off. So maybe they move faster than the normal turtle. Anyhow, that's kind of a wrap on how much sawmill horsepower you need. You never have enough. What can I tell you? Oh, by the way, I have that on. You never have enough. Like I said, I don't think that engine there, I'm probably sawing with somewhere around, I'd have to look at some power curves, maybe 180 horsepower on this one. So Mark's probably sawing with 180. And I bet he'd like a little more horsepower. But to compensate for the horsepower, you start to slow down your feed rate. Or you get a smaller blade. But most of the time you slow down your feed rate. And your feed rate, if you get too slow, you're making the flour, which goes around the gullet, comes out of the gullet because it's too fine. And if you go too fast, it fills the gullet up. You want it just the right, so the gullet fills up and then throws it down out when it comes out the bottom. But you don't want to overfill it, because then it starts expanding out and going around the insert, or whatever you want to call these little doohickey round things, tensioners, inserts. I think most of the time they call them inserts. Trying to think what else. Like I said, I lost that one sheet down there. That was basically, I think the next one I might do on how much horsepower it takes to run wood splitter, because I've had a lot of people ask me on the wood splitter, because I've been doing wood splitting videos from the past. They were back when it was dry in December. How much power it takes to run a wood splitter, and it was kind of like ratings on wood splitters. You know, I saw one today that was rated at like 42 tons, and I'm sitting there going, I'm not real sure about that. You know, I guess you could, maybe they got a special made pump, maybe they're running, you know, super high pressures. I think that, you know, rule of thumb, they're running probably 2,500 psi, and if you take the air, the only pressure that you're going to get that really works with, and what they're doing to get these astronomical pressures, which is what I had on that thing down there, in my opinion, all this is my opinion, so it don't mean a hill of beans to a lot of people, but if you agree, leave it agree in the comment. But on the wood splitters, okay, you take the area of your piston, okay, times your psi of your pump, gives you your power of that piston, okay, per square inch, okay. But what I think they're doing is they're taking the area of the wood splitting wedge times the power times the psi or power that it's pushing, and somehow they multiply that up. Because if you figure, if you got say just 10 tons of wood splitter, okay, and it's pushing on an edge that's 14 inches high, but it's only a quarter of an inch thick, the pounds on that per square inch are way up there. And I think that's how they're getting these astronomical readings on some of these things. And I was just doing that, and I found out that I did make a mistake on my wood splitter. It's pushing 7 tons of power. Not, I thought it was only 3.5 tons of power. It's 7. I think it's 7.06 or something is the area of that 3-inch cylinder, times I'm running about 2,500 psi, and then divide it by 2, and that'll tell you the ton rating of it. But I think that I think that somehow somebody's saying, well, yeah, but the ton rating per this little square inch is this. And the reason I brought that up is because when you have a real sharp tooth, okay, it goes through the wood a lot easier. When you have a dull tooth, there's more surface area on that tooth, so it might take twice as much horsepower. I mean, you might be able to do it with twice as much horsepower, but it's taking a lot more power when you have a duller tooth. Well, the same thing on a wedge. You know, it depends on where they're calculating it. But I'm getting kind of goofy and off the world, so I hope you like this video. And if you have any comments on horsepower or that kind of stuff that I could help you out with, I'm not saying that what I got here is right. You know, there's a lot of people out there sawing with, you know, maybe 25 horsepower. And if you can do it and you're happy with it, then you should do it. But, you know, if there's the whole reason of this YouTube, and for me in this YouTube, as I started out, was to help people. So this is to help people, give them an idea on how much horsepower you might want, you might need, you might think you need, or I got this, or I'm doing this, or, you know, same with wood splitter, how much horsepower I need to make a wood splitter work, which was a question that was asked a lot on the wood splitter, how much horsepower that is. So anyhow, I'm going to call it a wrap. Leave me a comment down below on you know, maybe what kind of sawmill you have, what size blade you have, how many teeth you have, and how much horsepower you have pushing that log through there. It'd be kind of interesting. And I appreciate you coming by. If you're new, I'm glad that you stopped by. If you're old, I'm glad that you stopped by. And if you hate it, I'm glad you stopped by. So hit the thumbs up button, because a lot of people miss that thumbs up button. Subscribe button. If you like it, come back, hit the subscribe, and maybe they'll tell you. I see a lot of people that were subscribed that are they're not unsubscribing, but YouTube is unsubscribing. I don't want to get into that, but hit the thumbs up, hit the like, send it to a friend, which is probably the most important to help my channel grow. So thanks a lot for being here. This is over and out for cold Maryland right now. Chris, you can have your cold weather back, buddy. And that's where we're at. Hadn't done too much. It's just, old boy don't like to get out in the cold. And it is, even though it's cold, it is so muddy. I came in here, you can see the tracks. Oh, it's just terrible down here. And where it isn't mud, over there is just like ice, slippery. You walk on it and you're gonna go down. So that's why I'm not doing too much down here. And then you can see the trail. I don't know if I'll zoom up there. I was moving yesterday and it was 6 degrees yesterday morning when I got up. The sun hits that, and the next thing you know, it makes the top just slippery as can be, and you're sliding all over, and oh, what a mess it was. So that's why you're not getting too much sawmill video or too much of anything video. And over and out. Bye-bye.